Hey, Sweat family. I'm Nicole Meline, and this is an introduction to a personalized bike fit, how to get yourself set up on the bike and adjust all the points of adjustment to make sure that the bike is in perfect geometry to your body. I lead a movement practice called Alter, which is as much a workout as a work in, both indoor cycling journeys and a mat-based movement practice. And indoor cycling for me has been a source of discovery, a source of strength, and a source of centering for decades. I'm passionate about this movement practice. And you know, the funny thing is that when you're on a bike, you're not going anywhere, right? Like you're riding a bike to nowhere. I love thinking about nowhere as now, here. That's really the magic of this workout, is that because you don't have to pay attention to where you're going in space, you don't have to pay attention to where you're headed, you can totally drop in to the music, to your breath, to your heartbeat, to your body, and let that rhythm reset you. So it's so worth you kind of going through the few rides of awkwardness to really be able to drop in and adjust to this incredible workout. There are three main points of setup on the bike. There's the height of the handlebars, there's the height of your saddle, and there's what we call the fore and aft. So it's how close your saddle is to the handlebars. Sometimes, depending on the bike that you're on, it'll also have an adjustment for fore and aft on the handlebars. So there would really be maybe 4 adjustments. So we're going to start, first of all, with the saddle height. That's maybe the most important. And you'll often hear approximated adjustment on the saddle height is that it should be hip height. It should be your hip height. But I just want to point out, like, where is my hip? You know, this is my hip. It's actually it's a large part of the body, right? So to figure out exactly where that is, it's not the most personalized form of making that adjustment. So what I want you instead to think of are actual angles, actual geometry of your body on the bike. So hip height is not a bad place to start just to get a rough fit. So, you know, this is roughly hip height for me, right? When I get on the bike, and I want you to notice I'm in cycling shoes. We're going to talk about that in just a second. Don't worry about that for now. But when you are on the bike, the way that you're just going to measure your saddle height is you're going to bring your foot to the bottom of your pedal stroke, like the 6 o'clock on a clock face, and you want your foot in neutral, meaning you don't want to drop the heel or point the toe. So your foot is flat. And do you see there's just a little micro bend in my knee? It's about 15 degrees, somewhere between 10 and 15 degrees. What's important is that my knee is not locked out. I can't lock out my knee without dropping my heel. So if I was able with a neutral foot to lock out the knee, I would want to bring my saddle down just a little bit, right? What's really important too on the other side of it is that I don't have a huge bend in my knee. So this would be more like a 45 degree angle. This would be all the way up to like a 90 degree angle. So what you want is, first of all, that slight bend in the knee, meaning that you're not locking out the knee, is going to protect your lower back. It's going to mean that you're not rocking back and forth. And making sure that you have only a slight bend in the knee is going to reduce the amount of tension that's on the knee joints. So you want the work when you're on the bike to be in the muscle, not in the joints. So you want about a 10 to 15 degree bend in your knee right here. The second point of adjustment that we're going to look at, because you would also adjust it at the saddle, is again that fore and aft, the distance between the saddle and the handlebars. So you'll sometimes hear this as an approximation. And again, it's not a bad place to start. There's just no science to it, right? So we want to really work with the particular geometries of your body. So what you want here is when you bring the foot rather to the 3 o'clock position, and the knee you want right over the ball of your foot. So bringing that foot right to the 3 o'clock position, you want your knee over the ball of your foot, meaning that, very importantly, the knee is not in front of the toes. I have to lift my foot out of that 3 o'clock position to get that. You don't want the knee in front of the toes. Again, that's going to increase the amount of load that's on your knee joint. We want to avoid that. keeping the work in the muscle. So knee right over the ball of the foot. And that is also, not only is it going to protect your knee joint, but it's going to maximize the amount of power in your pedal stroke. So those are the two values that we emphasize when we're thinking about a bike fit, both protecting the knee joint in particular and maximizing power, right? How can you get the most power? And that's something that you might experiment with a little bit. Once you have the rough geometry, right? You might want to try, if you have micro adjustments on your bike, maybe bringing it down just a touch, maybe lifting the saddle just a touch or bringing it forward, back slightly to see where do you actually feel more power. And if you have metrics on your bike, see more power in a watts measurement, say. All right, so adjustment number 3, again, sometimes you'll have the ability to adjust handlebar distance by bringing with a forward adjustment here. You could, again, you're gonna help to determine that by thinking about that fore and aft of the saddle. Again, knee over the ball of the foot. This third adjustment is handlebars. Mine are at the right height for me. And this is really about comfort. So actually what I'm gonna show you first seated is, especially if you're a new rider, and if you're watching this video, good chance you are, I'm gonna suggest that you bring your handlebars just about as high as they go. So what that's gonna allow is for you to have this really open chest. You're gonna get as much oxygen as possible, and what we want to avoid is collapsing our weight into our hands. So a cue that I often give when I'm teaching is suck the weight out of your hands, which is a weird thing to say. But the minute that you do that on the bike, suck the weight out of your hands, you engage the core. And that's what it's really about. So if I just say engage the core, you might not have any idea how to do that or what that means. Suck the weight out of the hands. Well, to do that, your core muscles engage and hold you up. So what we want to avoid is this, especially when you're really working. We want to avoid that, right? It's a strain on the lower back, and you're also not maximizing your power or your oxygen. So instead, this is particular to indoor cycling. You want the handlebars probably on the higher side, but what's important, that's really just to support the open chest here and the light grip of the handlebars. Another cue that I am often giving is drop the shoulders. Drop the shoulders, drop the shoulders, drop the shoulders, because we tend, as in life, right, to let the shoulders kind of inch up around the ears, and you want to keep releasing and dropping them. That's going to lengthen your spine and your torso. That's another cue you might think of as long spine, long torso. So you're here. Awesome. From here, I'm just going to take you real quickly through the 3 positions that you'll tend to go through on the bike. Obviously, position 1 is just seated. And this counts. If you are a beginner and it's intimidating or it just feels super awkward to come out of the saddle, forget it. Just start here. Just start feeling that music. Start building your strength. Start building your cardio capacity. So perfectly fine if you want to just stay for the length of a ride in first position. It's a good time to say, if you're a beginner, your first few rides, you're probably going to be pretty sore on your backside. Your body has to adjust, but here's the good news, it will. Give it 3 to 5 rides, and particularly if you're taking those like every other day or without letting more than 2 days pass between, that soreness is going to go away. But the other way, obviously, to deal with that, especially as you're adjusting, is to spend a little bit of time out of the saddle if that seated position is feeling uncomfortable for you. So this is position 1. Position 2, which some instructors teach and some don't, some just skip right over it, would be standing straight up tall. I use this as just a really short transitional position. We don't have you here long because it's not optimal for the knees and it's not optimal for power in terms of the power that you're producing. So this is 2, up tall, and then my favorite, out to third. Hands are all the way out here on the ends of the handlebars, and this is what's important, is that my hips are shifted back. So a great way to just kind of check to make sure that you're in the right position there is that if you have a resistance knob here, or if you have some kind of, you'll usually have some sort of a pedal split, going down. A fork is actually what it's called. you want your knee behind that. So again, I want my knee behind this. That's another kind of reminder to make sure that my hips are back. That's where you're going to be generating the most power. Lower back is protected. You're using your glutes, your hamstrings, as well as your quads. It's as much about the pull as it is about the push. And you're just going to experience that powerful, powerful position. So 1, 2, 3. And that is your bike setup. I'm quickly going to talk about shoes. So you'll see that I just kind of snapped right out, right? The pedals that I have on my bike are my preferred pedal for indoor cycling, which is a Look Delta. And it has a pretty wide surface area. That means that I'm using more of my foot. So that's allowing me to recruit more of myself, more of my power, right? As I'm, and it's also less likely that I'm going to get kind of tingly or soreness in the foot because I'm distributing the weight of that work around more of the foot. So I love Look Delta, but oftentimes, and actually on the back side of mine, you'll have SPD clips or cleats. They're sometimes called clips, but cleats on the shoes, clips on the pedals. The SPD, it's a smaller surface area. It is a little easier to get in and out of, but that said, it's also not quite as secure often. So you'll have like a little more, we call it float in cycling, where your cleat will move a little bit within the pedal, within the clip. It's less so on a Look Delta. You'll really hear that loud snap in. And so those are your options for the most part when you're looking at pedals for indoor cycling bikes. Really common if your bike comes with a cage, like a running shoe cage, that on the back side of that you'll have an SPD clip. So you would want to get matching cleats for your shoes for whatever pedals that you have. As far as if you are riding in, if you're just starting out and you are riding in like a running shoe of some kind or a trainer, the softer the sole, the more sensitive your foot is going to feel during the course of the ride in a not good way, right? So if you have to ride in, trainers and non-cycling shoes, ride in like the hardest sole that you can. That's going to help, because you're standing on your feet and you're flexing. This is the point, you're flexing your feet as you're pedaling. One thing that I just want to show you when you clip in, first of all, so if you have the clip placed right over the cleat, you can usually just snap in, and it's a very small movement of the ankle to wiggle into the pedal. It's more of a movement when you're on the bike, and if this feels scary to you the first time you do this, totally normal. When it's really tight, it feels scary to me too. Scary meaning that you almost feel like you're gonna do something to your knee, and you're not going to, like you're just gonna unclip from the cleat, but I just wanna warn you about that. So you're gonna kick your heels out away from the bike. So kick out. So you're just turning out to the side, almost like you're trying to get gum off your shoe, like really, really turn the foot. Sometimes I'm going over this because it's really common for people just to feel stuck in their clips. So that's really common. And it's worth getting a pair of cycling shoes. You probably won't wear them outside, so you'll have them forever. You'll have them for 10 years. And I'm just going to hop on one more time. The great gift of riding in cycling shoes is that when you're riding in a trainer, in a soft soled shoe that you'd just be walking around in, you'll work the push more, the quad work, the push of the pedal stroke more. And when you're clipped into the pedal, you're able to work the pull as much too. So it's a really balanced way of working your lower body, both glutes and hamstring, as well as your quad muscle. And then also when you're picking up speed or you're really going for it, feeling that stability on the bike, you're gonna want that. You're gonna want to feel like you're not going anywhere, your foot's not gonna slide out of the cage. One last thing about cages and pedals is if you are riding with a cage for your, like a trainer shoe or running shoe of some sort, make sure that it is tightened so that it's snug, but not so tight that it's cutting off any circulation in your foot. But again, I really encourage you to get cycling shoes, and you won't regret it. So I'm so excited for your journey. I'm so excited for you to make that transition through those first few kind of awkward rides. And one other thing I want to say is that especially when you're first standing up on the bike, when you're kind of transitioning from moving out of seated position and you're wanting to try standing, I want to just tell you a few things. Number one, more resistance. Err on the side of more resistance. So if I'm calling for an RPM, a cadence, a speed of like 60, and that just feels way too fast, as your first kind of time standing up, way better to err on the side of more resistance and slower speed so that you feel supported. What we don't want is for you to come out of the saddle unsteady, so where you're just kind of like wobbling around. So I'm going to advise not coming out of the saddle going any faster than 90 RPM. That would be your maximum RPM ever standing. I'm coaching more like around 80, 85 max. So again, make sure you've got enough resistance to support you. This would be second position. This would be third. Really common for first timers to kind of be collapsed over the handlebars here. We don't want that. You want to slide the hips back so that your muscles are actually doing the work here. Again, you can slow it down, make sure that you're supported as you stand, and give yourself a lot of patience as you're getting started. If you've gone through this setup and it still doesn't feel right in your body, or you just want a second pair of eyes to make sure that you've got the correct geometry for your body, I do personalized bike setups. You can get in touch with me over social media at Nicole Meline. We do them over FaceTime or over Zoom. This workout is worth going through the kind of awkward stages of it, because you will be able to drop into this space, this cocktail of muscle and soul and spirit and breath that's unlike just about anything else. You can unplug from the world in a way that you really can't in any other kind of movement practice, where you can just close your eyes and really be one with this rhythm. It's a very primal thing. Humans have been dancing around fires for a long, long time. And I think that this is one way that we're doing it together now. So I would love to lead you if you want to join me. I teach at alter.nicolemeline.com. So you can find all of my rides there. Especially I lead these hour-long warrior rides, which are this amazing challenge of body, mind, spirit, muscle. And they're always themed around some quest that we're going on together. It's about, like I said, as much about the work out as the work in. I cannot wait to hear how this practice unfolds for you. So please get in touch. I'm on social media at Nicole Meline. Big love.